One of the things that I've been really impressed with you over the years is you've casually talked to me about your salary has gone up. And we talk salaries, right, in the SEO community because everybody wants to know what they're worth. And you've increased dramatically over the years, and you're coming out to talk about that a little bit. I know you're coming to the in-house SEO Exchange to give a presentation on this. So talk to me about what are the things that you did to prove the value to management that you're worth more, and how did that conversation go with the executives or your manager when you gave that request?
Okay, so how did I demonstrate my value, right, to my employers, and then how did I actually negotiate, right?
Yep.
So in terms of demonstrating the value, one of the things I absolutely love about doing SEO specifically is it's one of the positions in a company where generally you can actually quantify your value. It depends on the company and how the company is structured, but there are a lot of jobs in companies you can't quantify your value, especially to show to the executives. So one of the most important things that I've done is simply, again, tying the SEO metrics and the SEO channel back to our bottom line KPIs. How does our company make money, right? How do we make profit? And then backing it out to be able to actually calculate what the value of that SEO channel is, and then calculate out the delta of the increase that I've created. So if I've been there for a year, it was flatline, and now it's gone up 100%. What's the value of that delta to our company? How much profit has that given to us? So actually calculating that out, and then making sure that my superiors are aware of that. So before I even get to the point of ever talking about negotiations and salary and compensation, they're already well aware of the financial value of SEO to the organization. Or in organizations, again, if it's a startup, they're not making money yet, then the value might be expressed in different terms, like amount of new users that are signed up every day or something of that sort.
Very good. Now, you've communicated this value over the course of your first year or your second year, and you're ready to go in and you say, look, I am worth a heck of a lot more than what I'm being paid.
Right.
How does that conversation go with the manager? You walk in the door, you sit down and say, manager, let's talk.
Right. So it may happen, you probably have an annual review set up. That may be a natural place to facilitate that kind of conversation. And first of all, you want to make sure that they're fully aware of the value. Again, if you can quantify it, that's the best. Those can be included in your SEO, some of the reports to your direct manager, or if it's the manager above him that's making the decisions, make sure both of them are aware of the value you're creating. Again, quantitative terms as best as possible. And then from that point, hopefully you've cultivated a decent relationship with your boss and just express to them kind of what you value. Really, any good boss worth his muster wants to know what specific things are important in his reports. So does that person value money? Do they value recognition? Do they value time off? And then they can make sure that person's needs are being met so they can keep their top talent. Some bosses are better at that than others, but you can help your boss by doing that, by expressing to them the things you value. Do you value time off? Do you value being able to work remote? So there's a lot of actually different points. First of all, you can work out and negotiate with your employer. A lot of people just think about the money. Oh, I can make this much money. But there's a lot of things you can take to the conversation with your employer. So once you've identified those, then bring those up in the conversation. If you don't have an annual review and you want to set up a time other than that, then you just need to talk to your boss and say, hey, listen, I want to talk to you about my future at the company. Can we set up some one-on-one time for that? And essentially, once you have that time, the way I approach it is I'll figure out what particular items are important to me, and then I'll work with coming up with some different options with my boss so that we can actually work through and negotiate those options and say, you know what, I'd really like to be at this compensation level, and ideally have a reason for it too. Is there something in your life that's a life goal? I mean, besides just wanting more money, why do you want that money? And if you can express that, that's also more powerful because then it aligns with your life's purpose. Where are you going? What's important to you? Do you want it because you want to send your kids to to college, and right now you're kind of strapped, and you're like, wow, if I was at this level, that would empower me to go do that. That's really important to me. That's something your boss might understand. And then once you get to the table, if they say, well, you know what, we can't give you this much compensation, we can give you this much, then at that point, you go back on one of the other points where you say, well, what about the time off, or possibly being able to work from home? You have those other points that you can then go back and you negotiate on those things. Because it's possible if you're a boss, it's easy for him to let you work remote or work from home. Whereas it may be hard for him to get you more money. Or it could be different things. Every company has different levers that are harder and easier for them to pull. And if you understand that, then you can go in and get the maximum value available to you by negotiating on several different points at the same time.
Right, so it sounds like you need to be planning months and months before to demonstrate your value, probably a year before.
Yeah, it does take a bit of planning. I mean,
Yep.
one of my biggest negotiations, I planned, yeah, it was about probably 7 to 8 months from the time I began planning to the time that we finished negotiating.
So
The
that's
negotiations,
key,
yeah.
everybody, that's key. 7 to 8 months of planning before he ever talked to the boss about a raise.
Well, it was actually, let's see, it was about 6 months planning and then about 2 months negotiations with the company once I started
Okay.
talking to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you start, your metrics and communicating,
Mm-hmm.
this is the value I'm bringing to the organization. Then after
Yeah.
you've done that for
And
a while.
First of all, I didn't even mention this. The first thing is deliver value to the company.
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, if you're not delivering value, you're going to have a very hard time getting a pay raise.
Right.
So deliver value.
Yep.
And then once you have that, communicate that value, and then you can go into the negotiations.
Right.
talk
And the
with
key
employer.
was, I'd like to talk about our future, my future with the company, which I thought was a really nice way of saying I'd like a raise. Because when I went through, I tell my war stories, when I went through trying to get my first raise as an in-house SEO, I wasn't as tactful as you are. I mean, I just said, I want more money. I'm worth more. So I really liked his approach. You might want to rewind it and watch that part again on how he had that conversation. And then when he had that conversation, he walked into it knowing what are the different levers that can be pulled, right? So you said, I know I could maybe get some time from working from home, or maybe money's easier, but he knew exactly what levers he wanted to try and pull. And so I think that's what, and then it could take months to negotiate.
Yeah, it depends on the
big-
organization. Startups, maybe we negotiate in 2 to 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
We work for a huge conglomerate. Sometimes the approval level had to go up 3 or 4 levels.
Yeah.
So for something like that, it can take a couple months.